Welcome to Restoration Beyond the Couch, hosted by Dr. Lee Long. In this episode, Dr. Long interviews Jenn Kautsch, founder of Sober Sis and leader in the Sober Curious movement. Jenn, based in Fort Worth, Texas, helps women reassess their relationship with alcohol without judgment. Since 2018, she has reached over 200,000 women with her Happy Hour Survival Guide and guided more than 30,000 through her 21-day reset challenge. Join us as we delve into Jenn's strategies for fostering a sober-minded lifestyle and personal growth, promoting mental health and wellness. Your path to mental wellness starts here.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So could you kind of give us a little bit of background on how you became Sober Sis?
I can. We'll have to rewind life a little bit. But how I became Sober Sis is a very unlikely story because I, as a young adult, wasn't even really a drinker. I wasn't really a drinker until my 30s. So the fact that I'm in my 50s now and known as AKA your sober-minded sis
I love that.
is pretty ironic, really. And I think it just goes to show that anyone can begin a relationship with alcohol and change it at any time for any reason.
It is a very fluid experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, pun intended, I guess, but with the fluid part. But there is, these types of things can change, they can alter. So it's never, I guess, is it ever too late? Is it ever too soon?
No.
Is it ever?
No, and I think that's what's interesting is that there really is a drinking highway, if you will, kind of like you can get on and exit off at any time. And that's kind of where I found myself in my 30s. I was a young, working, married mom and just really started kind of finding myself in the networking happy hours. And already had kids on the ground at that point, had been married to my awesome husband, Craig, for almost a decade at that point. And drinking was just kind of, it was all around me my whole life, but I didn't really have a cautionary tale around drinking. It was just kind of one of those social things that you either kind of liked or you didn't like. And for whatever reason, it just never really appealed to me as something that I was drawn towards or really enjoyed, or even had friends that it just wasn't a big part of my growing up years. And the culture changed a lot too. I've done a lot of study on just our cultural changes around drinking and kind of the mommy wine juice culture and wine o'clock. These were words that were just starting to really get on the scene. The rosé all day, t-shirts.
Oh, that's so true.
And that was just starting to converge about the time that I was starting to become a working mom with my kids. Almost, I think they just started school. So I was like, okay, I can be at home during the day, kind of do my thing at night. And then that's when I got into the happy hour scene. Before I know it, it's book club, then it's date night, and then I'm just cooking in my kitchen. And I was effectively drinking almost every night somewhere for some reason.
Right.
And that's okay. I'm not here as like, the alcohol police or saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. But what I noticed in me was already a lot of cognitive dissonance off the top, right out of the gate, because I really liked the way it made me feel. Almost instantly. I was really like, oh, okay, I'm 32. Now I get why people really love to unwind with this at the end of the day. And if you're saying that this is encouraged, glamorized, and I can do this too at the end of the day, well, it's certainly my reward and something I'm going to be looking forward to. So I'm all in.
Which is so interesting. First of all, one of the things I love about Sober Sis and your philosophy is that there is no shame involved.
No.
Like
you said, won't serve the conversation, really.
It won't. Shame doesn't serve anything other than shackles and binding. But the other thing that popped out to me that I love that you say is you're not the alcohol police. I'm not here to police anybody.
Right.
And to say that this is right or wrong.
Right.
It's more of a conversation about, because a lot of times people look at addiction as a means of like, oh, well, it's a character defect.
Right.
And I am here to say, let me say it loud and clear, it is not a character defect. It's not a character defect.
Agreed.
In what I love what you're saying is that your process with becoming Sober Sis was really, I mean, what I think I'm hearing you say was you learning to love yourself well and to see, wait a minute, something slipped out of my purview that I don't like it there.
That's right. It was just misaligning for me.
I love that phrase.
It just didn't align with me. Mind, body, spirit, who I wanted to be as a wife and a mother and a friend, the way I was showing up in the world, it didn't align with my wine o'clock habit, which that's how it started. It all started just as a social pleasantry. Yay, that's fun on a Friday night. Then it turned into kind of a routine where it's kind of like, well, that's what we do. And then it became something that I felt just, again, not the physical addiction, but the mental, the emotional repetitiveness of it became just such a routine that I felt like, okay, now it's having more control over me than I have over it from a mental, emotional, like, I'm really looking forward to this wine o'clock. Like, is it 5 o'clock yet? So I would do everything mindful, responsible, very giving, very, just on it. I'm an Enneagram 1, 1-9. So I was getting it done, keeping the peace, making list. I was doing it all. And then by 5 o'clock, it had really entered into my life as like, okay, now I can transition from day to night. Now I can transition from, mom to wife. Maybe it's just me time.
Yeah. And it almost sounds like you're saying it was a form of you being able to check out.
Right. Yeah, check out from the over responsibility, the overthinking, all the overs. I was kind of over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing about drinking in our very alcohol-centric culture is I could get a girls' night out any night I wanted. Just text a few friends and pick our favorite margarita spot or a place to just kind of hang out. And again, that was great. I think what we were doing was really wanting to connect.
Great point.
And I think that that's what I've learned is that connection really is the antidote to addiction. And addiction, in my case, doesn't have to mean a physical addiction. It can mean anything that you're doing repetitively, but still getting negative consequences or a negative response. And for me, the duplicity that I felt inside was what was tearing me up internally. But here's the deal. Externally, I looked like everybody else.
Right.
I didn't lose anything. Right. I didn't get a DUI. I don't have a big rock bottom story. It just was misaligning for me. And that was enough to look at it.
That is so well said. That is so well said. You used a phrase, show up.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite phrases right now, is, are we aware of how we show up? Yeah. Are we aware? Are we showing up for ourselves?
Exactly.
And you're saying, I felt like I wasn't showing up for me.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really became about my relationship with myself.
Oh, I love that.
Because what was happening was I woke up with all of these good intentions. The detox to retox loop. I talk about it all the time. Where it's just this loop of like doing all these things, but I was doing all these things for myself. But then in the evening, that unwinding, that retox, that undoing, it was almost like a form of abandoning myself. Because what would happen is from 5 o'clock on, I started getting smaller. I started getting much smaller in my own life. And I started to minimize my presence. My own presence in my family and in my own life. And before I know it, I'm the woman at the kitchen sink who's on my 3rd glass of wine thinking, how did I get here? This was not my goal this morning. It's not really even my goal in life, how I want to show up. But one thing's led to another. And now I've just kind of shrieked back into the corners of my life. And I'm just playing small. I'm showing up that way. And I don't like that.
That's one of the greatest gifts you've been given, is that sense of you. We're created in the image of the Creator. And it's bearing that image out well that gives us that sense of peace. Mm-hmm. And you coming to that place of, I love the cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
It didn't settle well with your soul. And out of that came this desire to give away what you're learning.
Yeah, because really I'm the girl next door. I'm the mom next door. I'm the wife next door. I'm the carpool gal in your line. I am that person.
Right.
And yet I thought, well, how can I be struggling with this? And for me, it was really humbling to realize, oh, wait a minute, anything that we make bigger than our own presence, or even listening to the Holy Spirit's whisper inside of us, can take that place, and something's taken that place, and now it's got me by the hook a little bit. And how can I break free without it being about legalism, performance?
Love that.
My Enneagram 1 is just trying to do the right thing for all the wrong reasons. I want to do the right thing for the right reasons. I want to feel aligned, and that's where the journey's taking me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think that alignment is that place. It's where we're like humming along like a well-tuned car.
Well, and even with drinking, I can honestly say now I drink what I want when I want. And that feels freedom to me.
No
My
kidding.
goal was never to want to drink and learn how to not drink.
Right.
Or whatever substance or choice that people are making. To me, it's more about being sober-minded.
That's one of the things I love about Sober Sis. I just wish you had Sober Bro too, but
I know.
But
We need one.
I love the fact that this isn't about like abstinence for the sake of abstinence.
Right.
It's all about understanding your relationship to whatever.
Exactly. I think a lot of the principles and mindset tools that I've used apply to so many areas of life, because it is about, having a strong why you're doing what you're doing.
That's right.
How to create small wins, how to live in your own presence and not numb out or check out, and feel all of the feels. I know a fan favorite of you and I both is Brene Brown. And, she talks so much about you can't selectively numb. And that's what I was trying to do, was numb the anxiety that I had from raising teenagers, numb the loneliness sometimes I felt in my marriage, numb the boredom, all the things. But I wanted to keep my joy and my resilience, and I wanted to keep those things. But when I was drinking, I was numbing it all.
And it what I hear you saying is you were trying to show up for everybody else.
Yeah.
But you weren't able to show up for you.
It's like you don't have to worry about Jenn Kautsch. She's not going to drop a ball. Oh, meanwhile, I'm dropping the biggest ball of all. I'm dropping my relationship with myself.
That's it.
And that's where I really started working out of the gate, was rebuilding trust with myself.
Right.
So that when no one was around, I grew up in a really strong, solid home. And I always learned that, character is who you are when no one's looking, when no one's around, even when it's just you and your desires and your, longings and aligning with you. It's got to match. It's got to match. Right. I wanted to match the inside and the outside.
Which is exactly what you were describing with cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
It has to match.
It has to match.
It has to line up.
Mm-hmm.
That sense of dissonance is when something is, like you said earlier, misaligned.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't feel like it goes together.
Right. And that was it was miserable. It was exhausting. And I think one of the things that I've learned along the trail is that we're not broken, just our pattern is broken.
That is so right.
And that can be fixed.
That's so right.
And I always thought I was broken, like something had gone wrong and I needed to, like you said, it wasn't a moral defect, that I wanted something that took away my negative reality.
Right.
That's a human thing.
Right.
That's a human desire to want to bend or change reality when it is difficult, unpleasant, or painful.
Sure.
And yet, it's also human to be able to stay.
Absolutely. It's like when we get hot. I mean, here we are at the time of this recording, we're cresting into summer.
Yeah.
Boy, we are slamming into summer.
Yeah, we are.
And it's heating up outside. And what do we want after we've been outside for a while? We want to come into a cool space. Sometimes we don't have that at our disposal, and we have to find a way to find shade or cool ourselves in that moment. And that's the physical realm. And sometimes we have the ability to step away and to distract in a way that isn't harmful to us. But then in other times we distract through harmful ways.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think what you've done is brilliant. I've always been a huge fan. Yeah. Always.
You really have.
Yes, I have.
You have.
So walk us through, if somebody's contemplating this, if there's a lady out there that's listening and who's contemplating, I want to check more out. I want to check this Sober Sis deal out. Where does one typically start with Sober Sis?
Yeah. I really created Sober Sis in an effort to create what I wished I could have found, which is a safe place to wrestle, talk about out loud your relationship with alcohol without having to slap on a label, say you're never drinking again. Maybe that's too extreme. Maybe you can be a mindful drinker. Maybe that works for you. I want to encourage women to be curious. I think curiosity is the key. And so just to be curious about your relationship with alcohol, the wrong question is the one I was asking myself for many years, which kept me really stuck. And the wrong question is it bad enough? Jenn, is it really bad enough? I mean, come on, you can take it or leave it. I mean, granted, you're going to take it more than you leave it, but is it bad enough? I just would look around. A little bit of a comparison trap there, because I could always look around and find somebody who's drinking more,
worse, right,
or more often, or had a more negative relationship with drinking than I sure did. And so that kept me stuck. But the right question is it good enough? Is it good enough for me? Wait a minute. Is this good enough for the way I want to show up? Is it serving me in my life? Again, taking away the external. Internally, is it serving me, or is it taking a lot of bandwidth? And so if you're starting to feel like, I just like to pull off the drinking highway to a rest stop, go with my analogy here, pop the hood, check out, you've got some warning lights, some gauges are saying, low fuel or some weird red lights blinking. And you're like, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. Let's pull over and talk about it. Let's look at it. And then you may get back on the drinking highway. You may get on a different highway and decide, you know what? I think I want to pursue what it would be like to maybe explore an alcohol-free lifestyle. It's an option, but I'm options girl. I'm all about the freedom to choose, because you take away the freedom to choose and you take away freedom. And so I think the freedom to choose starts with curiosity. And so that's where I invite women into just a normal conversation where you can talk about alcohol and drinking. And again, in an alcohol-centric society where I would say most people have a relationship with alcohol of some kind.
Right.
And you just want to renegotiate yours.
God, there's so much freedom there, as you said. And the thing that I love about that is curiosity.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ideas, is let's look at this instead of being judgmental.
Yeah. And so binary and so
let's
linear.
Be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can we learn from this? How do we walk through this? Curiosity rather than certainty and judgment. Love that.
Exactly. Because if we go for just behavior modification, you can even start to identify too much as even, say, a sober person. I don't even say I'm sober. I know, AKA I'm Sober Sis, but it's really short for sober-minded sisters. And so for me, my identity is more in who Christ says I am and in the truth of my ness, my Jenn-ness.
Right.
That is one of a kind.
You've said that for a long time, your ness, and I've always loved that, because that's that sense of true identity, that rock solid, who were you uniquely made to be, and really owning that and seeing that. And I love the idea of sober-mindedness, because it expands. We can be very myopic and bring in one view of one thing, of one topic, and really make that the focal point. But when I was learning to drive, One of my siblings, who they're all much older than I am, one of my siblings said to me, hey, I really want you to think about when you're driving down the road and you're on a 2-lane highway, I don't want you to look at the oncoming lights of a truck, big Mack truck, so to speak. I want you to be looking over at the right-hand side of where you're trying to go.
Love that.
And I just remember thinking as a teenager, to me, everything was analogous. It's always been that way my whole life. And I was like, I think that's probably true in life, that we stare at the things that what we stare at will tend to drift toward.
That's right.
And that's what my sibling was trying to tell me, is when you stare at something, you drift toward it. So stare at the aim that you want to be. And what you're saying is you're imparting to these women is, rather than looking at alcohol and saying, let's look at alcohol, let's examine alcohol. No, let's look at our ness, your Jenn-ness, your Lee-ness,
right,
your Sally-ness, your Ralph-ness. And I know you don't deal with guys, but...
Yeah, but that's my dad's name, so that'll work.
Oh, who knew? I didn't know that. That's really cool. So there's that space of us moving through this to find more of us. And when we focus on that, the curiosity brings forth...
Well, and it becomes really positive and empowering. Instead of fear-based and
because like
I'm walking this straight line, I'm trying not to fall off. No, I'm walking free, and direction matters a lot more than speed. So if I have the right, it done it, thank God. And so that direction, and I've learned, and what I teach is to focus more on what you're gaining, not what you're losing.
You said something a moment ago about, because you can become overly, I forget how you said it, but that we can be too focused. We can be like the sober police. And when you think about that, alcohol is still ruling your life.
Exactly. It's still there.
And it's like, let's let it go.
Versus it being shrunken down to it being so small and losing its value.
Love that. That
was a big part of my relationship with alcohol. It had a high value to me. Like, I can do hard things if I can have a glass of wine before we go.
Right.
I can show up and be super fun, Jen, if I'm a little tipsy, a little buzzing at the party. And what I've learned is, no, actually, if we focus on what we're gaining, not what we're losing, and we can be all there, then alcohol it starts to lose its value, and it just falls off instead of you dragging it around constantly, arguing.
Like a ball and chain.
Yes. Yeah, like arguing with it.
Right.
Just like we argue with reality. What if we just leaned into reality instead of resisted it, got curious, and then we didn't numb out or check out when things got hard?
And that is my whole piece about curiosity, is that it can show us where the shackle begins. Yeah. We can let go of it. We can drop it. And it's there. Alcohol, we still have to navigate alcohol.
Yep.
Because like you said, it's in our society, like it or not. It's there.
Yeah.
But then our relationship to it changes, and we can dance with it in a different way where we are more free.
Absolutely. I just, if anything, I just have gratitude now. And when I'm around, people drinking, my desire, my goal is to stay in my own lane. Just stay in my own lane.
I love that.
And, people are going to make their choices just like I made mine. And if anybody would have tried to have changed me, well, we all know that doesn't work. You can't change other people. So, people, it's just like any other personal choice. You've got to be driven to want to do it for yourself.
Yes, and there has to be something, like you're saying, driven to want to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because it comes from inside.
Yeah, something pulling you forward instead of just something external or a person pushing you. I'd rather be pulled towards something than pushed.
Absolutely. Because the push, there's always the resistance, right?
Yeah, but if I'm being pulled, I'm moving forward. It's on my terms.
Right. On your terms. And curiosity is how you learn what your terms are. Because if we're unaware of ourselves, like you said, you were losing that sense of you. If you don't know who you are, if you can't show up as Jenn, as wonderfully, fully, all things that our Creator made Jenn to be, then how do you know what you're being pulled toward? And to me, that's where curiosity is key. Is that you're curious and you get to show up more, to use your phrase, with your ness.
Well, that makes the journey ongoing. It's not a destination, right? We always have heard that little cliche, it's not the journey. I mean, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And so same here, just because I'm now choosing to live an alcohol-free lifestyle.
Right.
Because that just fits me better.
Right.
It fits my nest better, quite honestly. It's just more aligned. And I just feel better. I feel better physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I think it's part of my God calling as well. I think he's given me a unique assignment
he has.
in life. And
you are answering that call so beautifully. I will say from my perspective, watching you develop Sober Sis and all of that, you are answering that beautifully. And I want to say thank you, because it is so nice to have a place where I know that curiosity, that the sense of judgment and certainty is not going to be there, but curiosity and openness and conversation, but that there's a solid foundation and a ground from which people can stand. That is a really wonderful thing to be able to encourage people to check that out. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. It's been fought with a lot of challenge and a lot of growth that I wouldn't want to change or have any other way.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
If you found value in our discussion and wish to uncover more about the fascinating world of mental wellness, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes where Dr. Long will continue to delve into empowering therapies and strategies for mental wellness. Your journey to understanding and embracing mental health is just beginning, and we're excited to have you with us every step of the way. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and remember to celebrate restored freedom as you uncover it.